Matt, at this time last year, you're talking about how it's harder to learn from wins. What has your team learned and gotten better at in these three wins against top 11 opponents?
I think from a competitive standpoint, just being able to go against the four teams that we've played here in a row, Xavier, Gonzaga, Tennessee, and Marquette, all four really good teams, and that's the same thing that we did last year. We played Marquette before we went to the PK 85, obviously, and then we're fortunate enough to win versus West Virginia, Gonzaga, and Duke. So I think it just, builds confidence more than anything. I don't think it was pretty at times. We had stretches where we would go 5-6 minutes without scoring, and we had success a couple times when Zach was out. I don't keep him out much, but I think it's just there's different things. We have some guys that, and I've said this all along, that aren't playing at times, and they play around 8 to 10 minutes a game. They'll play a little bit more sometimes, and that's hard. It's hard to be productive when you get kind of like 2 4-minute stretches. I stayed with Caleb more yesterday. I stayed with Mason, more today. I just thought we had to score. I really didn't think we could beat him unless we got into the 80s, because that's how much I think of them and how they play and their offense. I thought we had to get there, and I wanted to get the best spacing that I could, and that's why I kind of went with him. And Caleb was a stud, yesterday, the way he competed. Trey Kaufman gets off to a good start, but as the game unfolds, I got to make that decision at some time. If you go back and forth, then nobody really, kind of gets that groove. So the reason I talk about that is because, I don't define the roles all the time, right? It kind of evolves on its own. It's like a market. You don't set the market sets itself. It's a kind of the way it gets, because you're going to sandwich it around your main guys. And when people pressure and people get after us and they do things, I really don't like to play without Braden. And so like that takes minutes away from other people, because now Lance gets into some of those minutes. And then if I like a matchup defensively in there, so you go back and forth. So really the answer to your question is, how can those other guys grow? They got to be able to play. If you're only playing 4 minutes or 8 minutes or 10 minutes, it gets pretty difficult. But you have to be ready. Like Mace played 12 minutes yesterday, and then today he plays probably double that. And you got to be ready to play. You got to be ready to help us win. And just kind of the attitude of our guys. I think we learned that also. Like our guys are, I don't want them to be happy with not playing, but I want them to be professional. I think I said that a couple weeks ago, and they've been that way. And that's what you have to get to have a winning program. You have to have sacrifice. And our guys have been sacrificing for each other, and fortunate, to coach them.
Man, you guys are outstanding from 3. I think at one point 9 for 11, 9 for 12 starting off. Just that just makes things so much easier when you got the big Maple inside.
Right. Yeah, you got to take them. I thought there at the end where Braden had to take that tough one. Thought we had a couple chances to cork it, and you got to do it. And obviously, they wanted to get it to him, right? It's pressure. It's time. It's his time to get the basketball. But now when they double him, you got to do what you're supposed to. Braden had the 1-3 that he made that was after the shot clock. He just was a little late getting to where he had to be, and we were low clock. But when you can make those threes and you can balance it, and that's what we didn't want them to do. We really wanted to guard the arc. We knew we were going to get in some tough spots the way they live in the paint. But we didn't want them to have 10 threes like we did. Now when they get threes and they get in the paint, and Oso and Kolek start manipulating the defense, like you're in trouble, which they still did, right? But they didn't have the threes. So on our end of everything, you got to step up and take it. Even sometimes when you're struggling, like you got to step up when you're wide open right there and feel good about that. But it was great to see those guys, Lance, Fletch, Braden, make multiple threes.
Matt, with Lance, sometimes maybe he'll go a little off script, maybe, so sometimes he'll take the shot.
Yes, sir.
He's not supposed to. What does that give you this year, his ability to
Right.
do that?
It's like the one tough 3 that he took, just drive the basketball. When you get low clock, people don't like to get disconnected from Zach. So the more you have penetrating dribbles and get in there, they worry about it. It's kind of like the flip ups that they run for Oso, they get you in that bind where you get in between. And so if you can get by your guy and get into the paint, good things can happen. But no, Lance really, he gives us another ball handler. He gives us quickness. He's got an edge to him. He's a good defensive player. And I think that's really helped us.
Real quick too, coming out of PK last year and coming out of this, how do you maybe compare and contrast these two teams?
Yeah. Obviously a lot of the same players. I just think being seasoned, being a little bit more experienced, a little bit better, from, playing together, going overseas, having extra practices, things of that nature. But kind of relatively the same. We've started Trey Kaufman, and, he gives us a guy that can score on the block, and it's kind of like an old school starting lineup as a traditional power forward. I like having those different options there. One of them's normally going to have lesser minutes, right? Sometimes two. So I think that really helps us. I think Lance gives us quickness. I like Cam Heidi's athleticism, Miles Colvin's athleticism. Both those guys can make shots. But like I said earlier, it's hard to play in those roles, right? It's hard to, you get in and you want to get them shots. You want them, but when you got to get adjusted to the game, and by the time you get adjusted, the coach takes you out. Yeah, it's a hell of a thing. So I think we're deeper more than anything. But we're similar. There's no question to that. We're similar. We've been able to play really well in these tournaments. We just got to keep building off of it.
Matt, obviously, Lance had the huge shot in a solid game as far as the box score went, but it seemed like all night he made several plays that really don't show up on the stat sheet. How important was he in this game?
Oh, it's really important because, he can pick up and guard point guards, and Braden can guard off the ball. He can obviously guard off the ball too, so he gives that versatility, to where he can defend multiple positions, but then he also gives you someone who can drive the ball that's not a point guard, right? So it gives you another guy driving it, and then they got to make a decision, who do they put on Fletch, who do they put on him? And then sometimes, when Fletch gets a little bit lesser of a defender, or Lance gets a little bit lesser of a defender, I think that really helps them in terms of driving, because Fletch had a pretty good tournament in terms of getting angles on some of our action and trying to attack, and we just got to keep doing that. But no, Lance has done a lot of little things. I like his approach. He's mature, he's competitive, he wants to win. He's learning how to play in our system, and he's learning how to play with our guys.
Matt, on Sunday we were talking about how there's going to be some pretty good teams finishing this 1 and 2, and sometimes you have an event like this, and it makes sense how it lays out afterwards. But what's your sense of the gap between the 3-0 team and some of these teams that are going to finish 1 and 2?
Yeah, I don't feel like there is a gap. You don't feel that way, but I don't think there's much of a gap. It's just where you are on this date, right? And it's just, UCLA Marquette game came down very close. Our game against Tennessee, very close. This game, very close. And that's what we all are. We're all very close as teams right now. And we just want to make sure that our success helps us, right? Sometimes you can get on edge after a loss. We got to try to stay on edge and, be ready to go for Tuesday.
Hey, Coach Painter, you've taken one of your teams to Maui for the Maui Invitational before, but I was wondering your thought on the tournament here this week and how you thought it came together here just in a matter of weeks after what happened up Maui.
Yeah, I thought it was great. It's hard to run something like this. It's not easy. People don't understand. Go run a simple summer camp, and and you'll see who's going to complain, right? Who's going to be mad? Everybody's always mad about something. But these guys were great. They were professional. They were great at our hotel. Everything that we had to encounter, from meals to the hotel and the games here. It's the space is hard sometimes, right? You got 8 teams coming in and out. That's difficult. People don't understand. We're used to going places, and it's just you just got one game, and so they put you up, and you have your space, and you have your kind of what you're set in your schedule. And then you come here, and it's different. It's always different, like in MTs and stuff like that. But I thought everybody here was really professional. It was great. And obviously, when you win, I don't care what happens, you enjoy yourself, right? Everything else can be awful. It doesn't matter. But it wasn't. It was fabulous.
So the foul shooting this week seemed like an outlier. Obviously, we'll work on the turnovers. What does that tell you about what this team might be capable of once you clean some of that stuff up?
Yeah, there at the end, obviously missing those two front ends, like, you got to put the game away. And, we weren't able to, but, had some struggles there. Just got to work on it. Just keep, putting in time. And turnovers is, too high when we played them last year at our place. It's, rightfully so. It's at our place. We only had 6 turnovers. And so they pressured last year too. They got after us last year too. We only had 6. So, got to do a better job of, taking care of it. Got to do a better job of understanding. We have a little bit of an issue just because you face some people that don't post double at all, and then they're going to post double, but you don't see it on film, right? But at some point they're coming. How they're coming, we don't know, and then we have to, adjust to that during the game. I thought we had a little bit of an adjustment in the first half, even though we're up 12. He still had 5 turnovers, right? And those were all in the first half. So that, being up 12 and he's got 5 turnovers, we had a drive where they called an offensive foul on him, where we thought we had that basket, and he takes care of the basketball there. You knew, with Oso being out, that could be the difference too. You got to understand that they had to play without him. So we're up 12. Their key guy, who they facilitate. Who facilitates, through a point center. You know what I mean? It's hard. Like, how do we prepare for that? It's really difficult. But how do they prepare for it? So there's a little bit of gamesmanship there, trying to get things figured out on both sides.
We'll take one final question.
Matt, can you just put in perspective just how good Zach Edey has been and how much better he's even gotten?
Yeah, man, he's a horse. He's a moose down there. And when he comes to compete, which he does, he just can't, the way he plays that, like, he just can't do that in practice every day. He just can't, it's keep everybody healthy, right? But he does, he plays hard. He plays hard. And so it's one of those adjustments that until you go through it, you don't realize, and you see a lot of the stuff that people do with the knees and the grabbing and the holding and doing all of that. Like, what are they supposed to do? Like, no, he's great. I was on a podcast or an interview or something, and they asked me who the greatest player, we've had at Purdue, like, that I've coached. You're like, you don't want to put one guy before another. Like, all those guys, if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be the coach. Like, it's a player's game, and but like, he's National Player of the Year. Like, Caleb Swanigan was runner-up National Player of the Year. Juwan Johnson was consensus first-team All-American. But now he could be a 2-time National Player of the Year. Like, he just, he doesn't have the crap that a lot of young people have that get recruited heavy. He doesn't have that. He doesn't have a sense of entitlement. He's gonna play. He wants to earn what he gets. And he just hasn't played organized basketball very long. And so, like, nobody told him when he was 14 or 15 that he was the next coming. He's had to work. Like, he averaged 3.5 points a senior in high school, guys. 3.5 points. I don't know what you guys average. Averaged 29. And I was a terrible college player. And so, like, put that in perspective. Now, he backed up Mark Williams, right? Who's a good NBA player. So he's just been about his improvement. He has these little rituals he does before and after, and like, he gets mad when he can't do it because of time or whatever. Like, he's just, about winning. Like, what he says, people get interviewed a lot that play. They learn to say the right things, but do they really mean it? Like he means it. Like, he's for these guys. We went out to LA, for one of those awards. He got National Player of the Year, and he brought 4 or 5 of his teammates with him. And I get out there, and the guy that was running it goes, "This is pretty cool." He goes, "We've never had somebody bring their teammates." I go, "Ever?" Yeah, ever. So, like, he understands it. Like, he understands how important those other guys are for him. But he has that. He just has a good way about him. He's competitive, but yet he's unselfish, and he just wants to win and compete. So, lucky to coach him. Fortunate to coach him. When I went to see him and evaluated him, he was so good in the workout that he was just okay when they played live. but like, how do you wanna see it, you know what I mean? You wanna see it before you take somebody. You wanna see it with your own eyes. Sometimes you gotta project, and you get in trouble sometimes projecting too much, because you don't know deep down what's inside somebody. And like, I mean, he was just so big, and he had a skill level, but when they played 5-on-5 the 2 times I watched, like, he was kind of a non-factor, to be frank with you. But then you go back to that workout, and you'd be like, man, he is huge. He's got a jump hook, and he's got good hands. And I think it's just worth, you know, obviously taking him, obviously, right? But like Brandon Brantley, our assistant, has really done a good job with him. He sits up there and watches film with him all the time. He works him out. But Brandon's also a truth teller. And that's the one thing that we've tried to do with him, is just, you know, telling the truth, and, you know, and then be positive with him. Be positive, just openly talk, you know, about what's going on at all times. And instead of constantly yelling, do this, do that, like, it's harder than you think to have 3 people on you and trying to read, you know, what's going on when you have the basketball like that. It's easy to see it when you watch film, but it's not easy to always see it when you got, you know, an octopus around you. So, thanks, guys.
Thanks, Matt.